They are the Emperor's bodyguard, his 10,000, the Golden Death. They are his noble emissaries and his pitiless executioners. By their hands are his secrets protected and his vaults guarded, unswerving in their loyalty and unshakable in their purpose. They are the symbols of the Emperor's unstoppable wrath. For 10,000 years have they stood sentinel over the master of mankind and defended his glorious palace. They are the finest warriors in the Imperium, physically and mentally fashioned to a design none but the Emperor himself can ever truly understand. They are an elevated elite whose raw strength and willpower are insurmountable. Each is highly independent and is an army unto themselves, clad in nigh on impregnable Auramite armor. It is with individually crafted weapons that the Custodian Guard cut down any who threaten the God Emperor. For 10,000 years, they operated in the galaxy in secret. No more. Now they stride across the stars in numbers not seen in millennia. Woe betide those who oppose them and their righteous reckoning. Inquisition File Reference 101692E/IC. Ordo, Thorian. File Accept Xload. Classified. Inquisitor ID. Redacted. From the word of the Holy Inquisition. Whilst historical record within the Imperium is often obtuse, what is known is that the Custodian Guard has been present since the very birth of the Imperium. The Legio Custodes, for that, is the moniker they adopted prior to the heresy, were the Emperor's trusted advisors, companions, and honor guard during the Great Crusade and prior. They have advised, protected, and battled by his side throughout the most storied conflicts in all of human history. Record of their origin in the current 41st millennium is scant at best and only known to those within the Guard. To all other, they are living myth and legend. Even the most ancient and fragmentary accounts, recovered by agents of the Logos Historica Verita, hold record of the Emperor himself being safeguarded by towering and immense warriors clad in sculpted golden Auramite. But the coming of the Emperor would only come once humanity had come to know absolute hubris. The golden age of man would become the dark age of technology. At the zenith of humanity's achievement, mankind would harness the power of the stars, and the men of iron would be fashioned. Man would give birth to true artificial intelligence and would form its first interstellar empire. It would be for naught. Mankind would be smote for reckless development and ambition. The tools of this pinnacle of human development, now abominable intelligence, ancient weapons and technology that would risk the annihilation of an entire species. For millennia would it continue until the Old Night took hold. It would be during the Old Night that the first empire of man would fall into disparate ruin, isolation, and ignorance. During the veil of Old Night, humanity would come to know true fear, predation, and collapse. For 5,000 years, the worlds of man would be isolated from one another by horrific warp storms that would cripple interstellar travel. Ancient terror would be cut off from critical allies, trade, supply, and local colonies. Across the galaxy, the other worlds of humanity would fare no better, stripped of cohesion, protection, and leadership, as well as trade and supply. The thin tendrils of civilization would be torn asunder. Anarchy, war, and apocalypse would follow. Human civilization would collapse as local warlords, factions, and sub-empires would war for control of its shattered realms, whilst other worlds, normally dependent upon local colonies for food, water, or infrastructure, would succumb to famine, disease, and death. On worlds with large populations of human psychers, warp entities would breach the barrier between the immaterium and real space, possessing these human shells. Worlds would fall prey to the perils of these warp storms as demonic incursion took hold. Xenos incursions would advance unfettered, seeking revenge on a weakened foe, plundering, raiding, or laying waste to colonies and entire worlds that could do naught but fall in protest. hundreds and thousands of human-inhabited star systems would be laid low as mankind lay slaughtered, mutilated, or abducted. Those that would survive during the Old Night would rapidly revert to barbaric tribalism. They would lose their culture, knowledge, reason, and understanding to pure survival instinct. Humanity would look over the metaphorical cliff to total annihilation as the darkness of the Old Night threatened to engulf the last vestiges of humanity. Untold corpses would be sown. Ancient terror, long the bastion of humanity, would see protracted radioactive and nuclear wars, with its arsenals of weapons each emptied in ancient feuds between long-forgotten factions. Terran oceans would boil. The world would become a lawless, apocalyptic wasteland of techno-barbaric tribalism. Humanity would be reduced to brutish savages fighting over the last vestiges of water, uncorrupted land, and ancient technologies. Ancient terror would be naught but a shattered shell, almost all of its unparalleled knowledge lost and ruined cities in place of a civilization that once rivaled the gods. It would be an age of hopelessness, of unending torment. It would seem the end times were upon mankind. Despair and destruction would be all any could see for the future of humanity. But in its darkest hour would be when hope would burn brightest. For in this time of need, the Emperor of mankind would show himself. He would reclaim humanity and their place in the stars. The Emperor was a warlord, a man, for that was what he called himself, of impeccable foresight, intellect, and martial prowess. Whilst even those closest to him may not have known the true range of his abilities, he was the most gifted psyker any mortal has ever witnessed. With his seemingly unlimited martial, psychic, and scientific mastery, he would reclaim what was lost. He would annex, conquer, or destroy the techno-demagogues upon the ruined surface of ancient terror. The future master of mankind would lay claim to untold amounts of scientific knowledge of genecraft and archaeotech from the defeated techno-demagogues and techno-barbarians. It would be with this knowledge and his own unimaginable scientific acumen that he would make use of this accumulated trove of genetomantic lore to forge the first and future custodian guard. Crude cave etchings, hieroglyphics, stasis-locked scraps of parchment, and gene-sealed tomes all hide the exact truth of their forging and the Old Night itself. What is known is that this would be the time of the Unification Wars. The Emperor and his guard would not just secure military victory, but restore humanity physically, intellectually, spiritually, and psychically to its former heights. It would cast down the idols of fear, religious worship, and blind faith that once held it hostage. In its place, order and rationality would reign. This was the first calling of the Imperial Truth. The days of the Unification Wars would see the tyrants of ancient terror, Callaghan of Ursh, Nathan Doom, and other deranged techno-sycophants and warlords, laid low. The Emperor would command his genetically exceptional custodian guard, the Thunder Legion, and the nascent Legiones Astartes, until all of Old Earth's techno-barbaric tribes were subjugated or destroyed. At the end of multiple millennia, terror would be reunited. The rebirth of civilization, government, and order would occur, and the dawn of the Imperium of Mankind, the Treaty of Mars, and Great Crusade would follow. Historical archives, texts, and recordings are likewise infinitesimal regarding the role of the Legio Custodes and their role in the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy that followed. Recordings from this time are beyond the usual sparsity of apocryphal sources from that era. What is more widely, though still uncommon knowledge, is that the first custodian leader was known as Constantine Valdor, records of which would be ascent following the heresy. Many remembrances differ in their archival belief. Some say that the custodian guard fought against the Thousand Sons during the burning of Prospero. Some record their defense of the imperial palace during the final assault of Horus and the traitors upon Holy Terror. Some redacted archives even hint at a hidden war that only the demigods of the Custodes could fight within a parallel dimension prior to the siege. One won at great cost. All seem an interlay of myth and legend, where the towering golden giants of the Emperor, living embodiments of his holy light, fight the battles only they could win. Lamentably, it would be upon the vengeful spirit where the custodians would be changed forever. The Emperor, in the final stages of that dreadful conflict, would meet Horus in single combat of titanic proportion. He would defeat, slay, and psychically annihilate the War Master of Chaos, but at the cost of mortal wounds. It would be the only time prior, or since, that the custodians failed in their duty. The Emperor would be interred upon the ancient archaeotechnological machinations and life support systems of the Golden Throne, and for thousands of years after. Almost all custodians would stand vigil and mourn within the imperial palace. Donning black cloaks would instill a near obsession, never failing to leave his side. They have carried this shame of failure since, never to forget or seek absolution from it. It is this sacred duty they continue to hold to in the 41st millennium, the defense of the Golden Throne, Holy Terror, and its surrounding systems vowing never to fail in their sworn duty once again. Inquisitor's Log. Designation: Ordo Thorian. Subject: Adeptus Custodes. His 10,000. All are genetic perfection, demigods made manifest, and all failed in their one duty to the master of mankind and his imperium, whilst they have long shown their unmatched martial prowess, and long ever been the Emperor's closest confidants, advisors, and even companions. Those within my ordo would be without purpose if their failure had been avoided. With our tenets, our words, the Emperor shall come again. Once more, his mortal shell shall be invigorated by his divine will. His great spirit can be brought back from heaven, and he shall throw away the shackles of the Golden Throne and step forth once more to finish the Great Crusade and make the galaxy humanity's forever. Until such time that the Emperor's rebirth may come to fruition, his 10,000 stand as the last line holding the kindle of hope for all mankind. It all stands upon a knife edge, but with his demigods, his noble emissaries, their perfection, we may just find deliverance before damnation finds us. We were never soldiers. Whenever we are seen outside the walls of this place, as rare as that is, it is in our martial aspect. We are clad in gold, just as it was in the earliest days when he was our living captain, and mortals fall on their faces as if before gods. To them, it must seem as if we are wrath incarnate. To them, it must seem as if we were created for destruction and nothing else. But we were his companions once. We were the ones in whom he confided. We were his counselors. We were his artisans. We were the first glimpse of what the species could become if shepherded aright and unshackled from its vicious weaknesses. Of course, we were taught to fight. He knew that war would come. It was a necessary part of the ascension, though it was never destined to last for eternity. We were the guardians of a new age and had to be strong enough to keep it secure. We failed in that, and now wear the mark of that failure in the black robes that cover our Auramite. It is a permanent reminder, replacing the cloaks of blood red that once adorned our battle plate. It weighs heavy with every one of us, for we know more of the nature of the fall than most. We still recite the old stories, and we study in the lost archives where we alone are suffered to tread, and so do not have the comforting illusions of ignorance to salve the wound. In a galaxy defined by ignorance, we remember. We cultivate the shards of the thing that was broken and remain aware of what would have been. I think sometimes that this knowledge is the most severe of our many burdens. Any brutal soul may fight if he has the goal ahead of him. We fight knowing that our truest purpose lies behind us, and all that remains is faithfulness to an extinguished vision. But still we preserve. we tend the things of value that have survived. We seek to embody his will in all things. We cleave to his light as the darkness gathers. We interpret, we study, we delve into the philosophy of the ages. We have many duties, but that is just as it should be, for we are not simple creations. The eons have changed us in so many ways, but not in that. We were 1,000 things to 1,000 souls, but we were never soldiers. Shield Captain Valerian, hero of Lion's Gate. Custodians are forged using genetomantic methods and archaeotech from the dark age of technology. The Emperor would discover and hone these techniques in order to create the perfect advisors, emissaries, and warriors that mankind had ever seen. He would reconstruct those chosen at the genetic level, undergoing complete physical, mental, and spiritual forging to become the perfect warrior scholars. The Emperor would need not merely martial perfection, but beings capable of advising him, challenging him, even perhaps imparting wisdom upon him. In order to create beings of this magnitude, the task would be monolithic to say the least. Custodian inductees are remade at the genetic level. This process is one of incredibly sophisticated genecraft, alchemistry, and genetomantic practices. Candidates must undergo genetic splicing, recombinant therapies, and epigenetic modification. Nothing other than perfection is accepted. Only the most gifted chirurgeons and bioalchemists involve themselves in their creation. Many have enhancements that make this work possible or expeditious in its execution. The creation of a custodian is carried out in gilded laboratories, in clandestine facilities, guarded from prying eyes. The creation is artisanal and unique to each and every inductee. Organ transplantation and surgical grafting does not take place. Rather, it is the gene craft, perfect in its design, that enables their apotheosis. Custodians are not manufactured, they are metaphorically sculpted from biological clay. At the end of this process is the creation of warriors, emissaries, and demigod-like heroes that are much tougher, faster, stronger, and intelligent than even the most gifted of the Adeptus Astartes. It is possible that this process even alters the very soul. It was once the case that the Emperor himself oversaw the apotheosis of each and every custodian. Every single custodian must be of limitless loyalty, resolutely remorseless, and of verdant vigilance. The sense of duty a custodian has must be their singular focus. This discipline must be an unconscious desire that permeates their entire being. They are duty made manifest. Each and every inductee will be mentally and psychically indoctrinated, rebuilt to create a fortified mental palace where no foe may breach. They undergo hundreds and thousands of hours of psycho-conditioning, psychomimetic drilling, and mnemic training. Endless information is poured into inductee at such a punishing rate that those that cannot withstand it fall to madness. Their training and inculcation extends beyond creating unrelenting resolve. They will learn diplomacy, statecraft, astrogation, interstellar geography, history, philosophy, art, theosophy, artistry, and countless other subjects. They must become master of all. In order to advise the Emperor, he required their mastery of every subject or situation he could imagine. Where the Adeptus Custodes differ from all other within the Imperium save recovered Primarchs, is that they retain the perspective and knowledge that was commonly found within and prior to the Great Crusade. They understand and hold to the imperial truth. Where the Imperium has been made a mockery of theology, ecclesiarchal worship, and abhors technological advance and innovation. The custodians remain as ever, ordered and rational. They may trace the most innocent philosophical question to treachery if present, or foresee how a remote Xenos force in the fringes of the galaxy may one day threaten holy terror. They are the keepers of the most forbidden knowledge within the Imperium. They understand the gravest secrets of the galaxy, for it is they alone that hold the foresight, understanding, and martial ability to face these threats. They understand completely how far mankind has strayed from the imperial truth, the emperor's ideals, and secular sophistication. They alone understand the utter tragedy of it all. Inductees learn many of these truths and are beholden to them, for some would threaten the Imperium and its utter devastation. Some who cannot handle these truths are culled, for to be a custodian is to be the guardian of the Imperium. Even in its darkest hour, it shepherds back to his light. Many thousands of inductees do not survive. Such is the brutality and weight of this process. They are known as his 10,000, for the severity of such processes would not realistically allow a figure of the guard much higher than this number. None other than the members of the Adeptus Custodes know their true martial might, and it is an utter secret to all outsiders. With the Indomitus Crusade and the sallying forth of his 10,000, it is more important than ever to mask such a figure. Survivors of this process emerge as custodians, and any term other than apotheosis would not capture the transformation that each and every member experiences. Their minds are altered to the point of a new individual, a new soul. They are physically perfect and possess martial excellence with each and every fighting style, arms, and armor. Custodians will adopt the names of gods, monarchs, or heroes drawn from ancient texts. In this way, the custodians are reborn as architects of the Emperor's will and preserves the pride and dignity of Terra's noble houses, where inductees are taken from. There is no indication of which inductee survived and from which house, and thus no aristocrat can lay claim to any member of his 10,000 or draw glory from it. Members of the Custodian Guard have lifespans so vast that they are for all intents and purposes immortal. They can fall and be slain in combat, but are consecrated with protections that nullify their vulnerability to the power of both Psyker and Null, making them the perfect counterpoint to the Sisters of Silence. Custodians, however, do not manifest psychic powers, giving them a level of stability not seen in regular humanity. No custodian will thus face innate predation within their mind by warp entities. In this way, it is clear the Emperor wished for a resolute bastion in his protectors. When considered, with all their genetic superiority, mental mastery, psychic protection, the custodians are designed to be the death of any threat the Emperor may face. They are to a space marine what a regular human would be to one of the Adeptus Astartes. They are the greatest of mankind, and may be its last hope. For in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, there is only war. Ours is the duty absolute. Ours is the vigil that must never end. Ours is the timeless honor, the willing sacrifice, the penitence enduring. We stand a watch that will never be relieved, and we stand it gladly out of adoration for he who gave us life, and whose life we must, in turn, preserve. We will never earn absolution, for we do not deserve it, but those who believe that would give us pause are fools. Tibullus Maxine, Shield Captain, Adeptus Custodes. For 10,000 years, the Adeptus Custodes have stood vigil over the Golden Throne and the God Emperor. In that time, no single foe has ever breached or gained access to the Sanctum Imperialis. The Custodians have many tasks throughout Terra and the Imperial Palace. They watch not just over the great gates that lead to the throne of the Emperor, but the entirety of the Imperial Palace and household. The Imperial Palace is a continent-sized sprawl of interconnected fortresses, cathedrams, armories, dungeons, macrohabs, judicariums, archives, sanctums, spaceports, and countless other locations. The circumference of the outmost walls exists for thousands of miles, with its limitless spires breaking through the atmosphere. whilst its sublevels are dug deep into Terran bedrock, at some points reaching hundreds of miles deep. There exist societal subnations, clans, techno-urbanic serf tribes that could populate entire colonies or worlds. Thus, the role of the custodians is not an easy task, but they have always been equal, patrolling its colossal walls, highways, spaceports, or gigantic fortifications. They hold fast over its miles of defenses, orbital guns, and hidden vaults. The Custodian Guard alone decides who may hold audience with the Emperor, and even then is only granted in the most rare of circumstance. The endless lines of petitioners who seek an audience are beset by the Guard who seek any nascent foe, heretic, or Xenos filth that may have penetrated the outer defense. It is also their solemn duty to oversee the thousands of psychers sacrificed every day to sustain the Emperor's life force and continue the light of the Astronomicon, for without, the continuation of the old night would follow. They also oversee his most treasured and secret vaults, where sanity-raising secrets from the dark age of technology are held. The shield companies of the Custodians also defend the Sol system and eliminate any threat to the sanctity of Holy Terra. They revel in endless blood games, designed with a member taking role of an invader to test the defenses of the Imperial Palace. A remnant from the time of the Great Crusades and the stay of a certain Primarch. For millennia have the Custodians partaken in their duty, bound to tradition that are almost ritualistic. As the wider Imperium stagnates around them, the fleeting mortal humans scurrying around their feet, their mortal lives coming and going without thought and purpose, the Custodians stand resolute. Even the loyal Space Marines are kept at a lance's length, for their fallibility may show itself once again. They never permit themselves a moment's reprieve in their duty. The Captain General is the highest role of the Custodian Guard and stands amongst the High Lords of Terra, and oft serve to advise the Council. They marshal the Terran defenses and exercise the total authority of the Magisterium Lex Ultima, which afford them total authority and autonomy, answerable only to the Emperor himself. The Sol system holds some of, if not the most formidable fortifications within the known galaxy. Manned by countless warriors, blind faith, and technological masterworks. But the greatest bastion is that of the Adeptus Custodes. The Sol system is defended by colossal star fortresses, void minefields, and deep space hunter servitors. Heavy naval patrols of the battle fleet Solar find duty within the Sol system, as well as monitor shrines, dock fortresses, fighter bases, and countless weapons platforms. For any foe, the Sol system may be considered nigh impregnable. The Custodians also monitor the masses with patrols and monitoring sweeps utilizing listening devices, spy servitors and dictalarcinous subroutines throughout the hives of Holy Terra. Custodians analyze every vestige of information for any threat and maintain vigilance against threats from within and without. The organization of the Adeptus Custodes is contradictory. It is one of known purpose. Such singular and dominant beings require little strategic oversight, as their unmatched intellect and martial prowess leaves them often with little doubt to the optimal and decisive point of action. Their numbers also make it unusual for more than several dozen custodians to take to the field together and, even without one another, operate with demigod-like efficiency in solo deployment. Those within the Custodian Guard know that they are led by the Captain General, who has total authority over the organization, and his word is as if the Emperor speaks. The Captain General, currently Trajan Valoris, is perhaps the greatest human warrior to have ever lived. He is a superlative tactician and formidable fighter. He has won many great battles, including destroying the Orc Megagargant factories of Begmek Evistomp and halting the awakening of the Necron tomb upon Zarthan 7. He was declared Captain General after his predecessor Andros Launchedre fell at the Battle of Black Pyre. He took up the weapons and armor of his former lord, including the Watcher's Axe and the Castellan Plate. He also bears the Moment Shackle, a Dark Age relic that traps temporal energy, slowing the flow of time in a local radius or excising split seconds from history. The Captain General is advised by the Custodian Tribunate, 10 veteran custodians who may be among the keenest minds of the Imperium. They serve for 10 years and are rotated out to ensure adequate representation and fresh perspectives. Custodians earn names for great feats, and a member of the Tribunate must hold 10 names and 3 great victories. Members of the Tribunate do not take to the battlefield unless in the most dire times. Their entire focus must be upon advising the Captain General. The Custodes are made up of 5 broad orders. These are ceremonial and date back to the times of the Great Crusade. The Hykantoi Order is the main strength of the Adeptus Custodes. The Tharanatoi Order contains Alarus Custodians and other heavy shock troops. The Cataphractoi Order holds reconnaissance duties, and Virtus Praetors mounted upon Dawn Eagle jet bikes. The Epheroi are the clandestine arm of the Custodes, with networks of spies, contacts, and assassins. The Mortatoi refers to the honored dead who walk and contains the Adeptus Custodes dreadnoughts, combat platforms that interfallen custodians with invaluable wisdom, insight, and destructive capability. In dire times or great battles for the fate of the Imperium, the Custodian Guard may come together in temporary formations known as a shield company. These are led by a shield captain, warriors of infallible insight, blinding tactical acumen and intelligence. They will lead fighting forces of custodians of Talons of the Emperor. There is no regulation to which form or forces of Custodes this may take, entrusted by fellow custodians to requisition what is needed for the mission ahead. They may require Alaris Terminators, Virtus Praetors, or Blade Champions. They may be bolstered by auxiliary forces known as its Imperatus Auxilia, that may act to pave a path for the company itself to meet its required objective. A collection of shield companies, known as a shield host, may be brought together in dire need. The companions are arguably those closest to the Emperor at any one moment. They are a 300-strong force that act as the direct bodyguard and advisors to the Emperor. There is no more important duty within the Imperium. This vigil is unending and is a purgatorial duty those custodians bear with pride. These sentries stand for incredible lengths of time next to the Golden Throne, poised upon a knife's edge to act if any threat to the Emperor presents itself. This task is physically, mentally, and spiritually exhausting, even for the Custodian Guard. When a companion is deemed to reach their limit, they are rotated out without dishonor. Constantine listens, makes comments. He follows as well as I do, which is very well, but not well enough. I have known him the longest. He was the one that first took me to kneel before the throne and brought me into this life. He was the one who found a purpose to fill the otherwise hollow girl. My life has been unpleasant, but it would have been more unpleasant if he had not taken me out of Albia. I will be sorry when he dies, and he will. He is a custodian. That is a very specific duty. A warrior of the legions Astartes may die in battle as a negative consequence of battle, but a custodian lives to give his life. I know him well too. I know all the custodians, well enough to know the entirety of the title names engraved inside their Auramite armor, even Constantine's 1932. They are not warriors, they are protectors. They live to die, to place themselves in front of the throne and suffer any mortal stroke. Space Marines pledge to fight to the death. So do I, and all my pariah sisters. But custodians, they pledge to fight for the life. It's not semantics. It means their deaths are inevitable rather than merely possible. Constantine's armor is magnificent, a gold finer than gold, more ornate than the Praetorians, for it is ceremonial before it is anything else. Rogel took down all the splendor of the palace when he fortified it. I think he would have had the custodians cast off their raiment and wear brute ceramite too. Ornamentation does not serve a purpose in Rogel's mind, but I think the ostentation may be forgiven. If a demigod offers his life to protect yours, then you should garb him in gold to honor that sacrifice. Genetia Kroll of the Silent Sisterhood. The Talons of the Emperor are the combined forces of the Custodian Guard and the Sisters of Silence. These penultimate forces are rallied and deployed only where the most dangerous foes of the Imperium lie, or where the need is dire. They operate with unbridled precision. They travel to battle within Gildan gunships and near impenetrable armored carriers. While small in number, their martial prowess and irreplaceable value is second to none. They are the talons of the Emperor's own judgment. The Sisters of Silence contain an exceptionally rare genomic coding, which phenotypically shows itself as that of the blank. Individuals, including the Sisters who bear this genetic alteration, bear no contact with the warp and are anathema to warpcraft and psionic ability. The Sisters were formed as the militant arm of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica. Their initial role was to crew and guard the black ships, those vessels with the express goal to shepherd the tithes of psychers, numbering in the thousands, to be sacrificed to the Emperor and his golden throne on a daily basis. The Sisters have undertaken this role since the beginning of the Great Crusade and answer only to the Emperor himself. After the Horus heresy, many within the Sisterhood would be slain, leaving many without purpose. Their mere presence makes many mortals uncomfortable, as most mortals hold some connection, even fleeting, to the Immaterium. This left the Sisters occasionally accused of the very thing they were anathema against. Warpcraft, aside from those manning the black ships, they would be a fractured order. This would change with the reawakening of Primarch Robout Guilliman. He would fight again with them upon the Battle of Luna and draft the Dispensatus Anathema. He would order the restoration of the Sommus Citadel upon Luna, their ancient fortress once lost during the heresy and now reclaimed. Sister Commander Asurma would be appointed, and their ranks would swell. The Sisters are rational to a fault, understand considerable tactical discipline, and are adept in stealth, subterfuge, and counter-surveillance, as well as assaults of bolter, flame, and blade. They utilize their horrific abilities to negate and destroy mind-addled soldiers, mutants, cultists, or even warp-controlled puppets of chaos. The Sisters have a distinct culture, somewhat barbaric. They have ornate armor with knightly sheen, inset with gems and cadence of imperial iconography. They have top knots of long hair and adopt totem-esque names in the guise of voracious predators. The Sisters take a vow of silence upon completion of training, which is further illustrated by their armored gorget, which covers the lower portion of their face. They have absolute discipline and will never speak of the terrible secrets or horrors they bear witness to. They communicate via a ritual form of sign language that utilizes gestures and body language. When sallying forth with other forces, these signs can be translated in audible phrases by techno-linguist systems or translated by acolytes of the order known as proloquors. They most often utilize the battle mark with clear meaning in the forays of battle. Inquisitor's Log. Designation: Ordo Thorian. Subject: Sisters of Silence. The Null Genome. The Mark of the Pariah. The Sisters of Silence are the Imperium's answer to the unrestrained taint of chaos that feeds its warmth through the Imperium. To be birthed without that intrinsic link to the warp, it is a blessing and a curse. To lose that innate link to unrestrained emotion, does it affect the soul of an individual? There is no doubt that there can be no greater foe to the warp-infused heretic, the mutant. But those of us who have traveled within the black ships, that is a torment that may cause the staunchest Puritan pause. The sacrifice of so many souls, the Astronomicon, his second coming must be our focus. The transgressions of this rotting carcass of his once great vision, the imperial truth lies in ashes, and we of the Thorian, we will see its resurrection done. Auramite shone, reflecting the hellish light of the warp fire with indifference. Even as the energies of the Immaterium tore at the air, the golden suits of the 10,000 remained pristine. a testament to the Emperor's own protection, woven into the very metal. The armor borne by each and every custodian is an artisanal piece without compare. Each powered suit of armor contains highly adept proximity sensors, powerful refractor shield generators, and are crafted from Auramite. Auramite is an immensely tough substance that is bound together and tinted on a molecular level. The armor of the Sisters of Silence is similar in nature to Space Marine power armor, combined with ancient void mail that gives considerable protection and grace of movement. The custodians are designed to be the end of any foe they face, to annihilate foes in much greater numbers and any other advantage. They are a paramilitary force and a honed blade, ready to eliminate specific threats or execute missions vital to the survival of the Emperor and the Imperium at large. For this purpose, they have the very best war gear in the Imperium. In addition to the artisanal Auramite armor, they have weapons forged specifically for them by generational artisans whose families have only ever produced works for the Custodian Guard. These craftsmen are gene-enhanced, and every piece is a masterwork and work of art. These weapons are created with no regard for the cost or rarity of the materials required, for they must deal with any and all threats the Imperium may be beholden to. The most iconic among them is the Guardian Spear, a perfect union of blade and bolter. Its haft houses a potent firearm, capable of unleashing explosive shells with flawless precision, while its spearhead, wrought from Auramite and edged to molecular fineness, can pierce even the most resilient armor. Others bear Castellan axes, vast polearms of brutal design, whose heavy blades can cleave through tanks as readily as flesh. Their integrated weapon systems deliver devastating bursts of fire before the wielder closes to enact destruction at arm's length. Some custodians favor sentinel blades, elegant yet lethal weapons paired with storm shields of shimmering energy fields, allowing them to stand immovable against overwhelming force. All are wrought from the finest materials known to the Imperium, their construction guided by ancient knowledge that few now understand. Where the custodians are golden demigods of war, the Sisters of Silence are its absence. They wield finely crafted executioner-grade blades, long two-handed weapons designed for swift and decisive decapitation, their strikes guided by preternatural precision rather than brute strength. Others carry vigilator blades, balanced for speed and lethality, cutting down foes before they can even comprehend the threat. At range, the Sisters employ bolt guns and specialized flamers, their purging fire made all the more terrifying by the psychic void that surrounds them. Psykers find their powers falter and collapse in the Sisters' presence, their minds unraveling under the crushing weight of nullity. Even demons recoil and weaken, their forms destabilizing as reality asserts itself around them. This is no less the case for the war engines they bring to bear. Venerable Contemptor dreadnoughts possess atomantic shields that may dispel laser blasts and physical weapons fire. Auto-repair protocols, motive shrines, and auto-sanctified backup systems allow a level of resilience when paired with Auramite armor that almost no foe can hope to overcome. Land raiders, clad in hyper-durable adamantine armor, thunder across the battlefield, armed with the finest Imperial bolt weaponry, and possessed by Magos-class machine spirits, noble, bellicose, and allow operation autonomously, some thriving since the time of the Great Crusade. Custodian Vexillus are Imperial standards, topped with the Aquila, rallying Imperial forces and causing terror to any foe. A century of artisanal craftsmanship for the artisans of the Tower of Aquilane may allow completion of a single standard. These standards may incorporate ancient martial technologies of crypto-technological means, enhancing strength, or refractor technologies to elevate defense. The light of the Vexilla Magnifica uses photophantasmic fluctuators and psycho-amplificator clarions to burn out visual senses, shatter psyche, and overwhelm foes with the Emperor's light. "Hello, Diocletian," he said. The warrior stood in the dark, his spear held in a loose fist. He was helmless, breathing in the earthy smell of a million memories. "My liege," he said. Somehow his voice was a gunshot in the nothingness, breaking the silence in a way the Emperor's had not. Things moved in the shadows, crawling away from the defiling sound of speech. The Emperor walked among the stilled enginery. The sand had blighted everything, even down here, running his gauntleted touch along the fire-blackened metal. "Sire, what is happening? Why am I here? Do you recognize any of this machinery?" Diocletian let his gaze roam over the cavern's wreckages. "No, my liege." The Emperor kept walking, moving from structure to structure, the way a man might browse the aisles of librarian. The thunder that shouldn't be audible this deep in the earth rumbled louder than before. "There are those in the cult mechanicum, among the unifiers. That surmise, I found the core of the golden throne here, beneath the sands of terror. A relic, they venture, of the Dark Age." Diocletian wasn't sure what to say. He had witnessed uncountable hours of the Golden Throne's planning and construction processes. Yet, as he said, he recognized nothing here. He didn't know if that was a flaw in his understanding of the throne's genesis among these machines, or simply because this machine crypt had nothing to do with the Emperor's greatest work at all. Perhaps there was merely inspiration to be found here, the Emperor mused softly. The idea taking form, based not on the successes of an ancient race, but the failures of our own. He exhaled a rueful sound, not quite a sigh, not quite a chuckle. Did I see these machines, how they fell short of their intended purpose, and resolved to create a far superior incarnation? There is a certain poetry to that, isn't there, Diocletian? The belief that we know better than those who came before us, that we will suit a throne better than they did. "Sire, are you well?" Or perhaps the idea was mine in its entirety. Any relics of lost ages that have proven useful for their parts, being the legacies of dead species that had the same idea, millennia before my birth. In such an instance, each race envisions its own salvation, independent of the others, only to discover that other species, other empires, have already failed to save themselves. Diocletian breathed slowly in the dark. "Does it matter, sire?" The Emperor turned to him, his eyes focusing on the custodian for the first time. "The war is over, Diocletian. Win or lose, Horus has damned us all. Mankind will share in his ignorance until the last man or woman draws the species' last breath. The warp will forever be a cancer in the heart of all humans. The Imperium may last 100 years, or 1,000, or 10,000, but it will fall, Diocletian. It will fall. The shining path is lost to us. Now we rage against the dying of the light. It cannot be this way." Diocletian stepped forwards, teeth clenched. "It cannot." The Emperor tilted his head. "No. What then do you intend to do, Custodian? How will you, with your spear and your fury and your loyalty, pull fate itself from its repeating path?" "We will kill Horus." Diocletian stared at his defeated monarch, illuminated in emberish light of the lumiglobe in his hand. "And after the war, we can begin anew. We can purge the webway. The unifiers can rebuild all that was lost, even if it takes centuries. We will strike Horus down and—" "I will face the 16th, the Emperor interrupted, distracted once more by the machine graveyard. "But there will come another to take his place. I see that now. It is the way of things. The enemy will never abate. Another will come, one who will doubtless learn from Horus's errors of faith and judgment. Who, my king?" The Emperor shook his head. "There is no way to know, and for now it is meaningless. But remember it well, we are not the only ones learning from this conflict. Our enemies grow wiser as well." Diocletian refused to concede. "You are the Emperor of mankind. We will conquer any who come against us. After the war, we will rebuild under your guidance." The Emperor stared at him. He spoke a question that wasn't a question, one that brooked no answer. "And what if I am gone, Diocletian?" The custodian had no answer. Thunder pealed above them, shaking the cavern and jarring loose a rattling hail of falling pebble dust. "My king, what now? What comes next?" The emperor turned away, walking into the darkness of the cavern while the storm hammered the dead city so far above. He spoke 3 words that no custodian had ever heard him speak before. "I don't know, but we face it together."